Thank you very much for this warm introduction, Oded. And I'm very thrilled to be here, super excited. I love this platform and I've been following it for years, especially this chapter. And I was happy to be invited here to talk about Invest. And the direction that we took Invest for this specific lecture is invest in design research and how investing in finding the right questions before trying to answer them would enable us to find better answers and create better impact. So I want to start by asking, how many times have you find yourself rejecting some sort of technology or products that other people are using in your public space, right? A drone that is buzzing above your head, a CCTV that is capturing your every move, or this shareable electric scooter on the sidewalk that is blocking your way. How many times have you felt that these users or innovations are irresponsible and inconsiderate on your public space experience, and you wish they can just go away? And what if I tell you, right, that unknowingly you are supporting this innovation, and that unknowingly they support your well-being, right? What if I told you that unknowingly you are the users of this disliked innovation? So these are questions I keep asking myself, right? Inquiries that wish to explore the societal impact that such connected innovation has on inhabitants' well-being. And these are also the questions that led me and my Bezalel mentor, Roy Bigger, to dive into this research. And basically asking ourselves, when I was thinking about my drone technology, right? Thinking about how we can find better implementations for this technology, I was interested to learn about a research conducted in the US that basically showed the feeling of rejection people have toward drone technology. I was surprised and also intrigued to understand that it made them feel uncomfortable, and I was interested to learn how can we see technology so differently. And basically this is what drove me to do a design research, to reframe my question, right? And whenever we start a design research, the first thing we do is searching for the right question to ask, right? And a design research always starts with a design challenge, which is going to change over time. But this is a good way to start. And the challenge I was asking myself was, how might we create a holistic user experience that addresses all the public space users and meet their needs? Now, holistic user experience that meets needs, we know that very well as product people, but that addresses all the public space users, this is a big challenge. And this is a challenge that makes most of us feel a little bit uncomfortable when thinking about a specific product. So we started a design research. And this design research was based on the double diamond methodology from design thinking. Basically, expanding our horizons with data on many fields that have nothing to do with drones, right? Expanding our database and then decreasing into insight while reshaping and reframing the design challenge as we go. And we did it for several times, as you can see here. And part of it was dealing with analogies, right? Finding analogies to the things that we are looking at. And the analogy that we chose to use as our case study was shareable electric scooters. Now, this is a perfect fit for what we were trying to examine, because shareable electric scooters represent intervention in the public sphere, they force connectivity, and they're addressing the active user, the person who is actually using them. Besides that, this design research was also conducted out of literatures, contextual interviews with users, with electric poles, and with observation, both physically and digitally. All that without knowing exactly where we want to go, right? Trying to find the right questions before we're answering the right answers. So without further ado, let's dive a little bit into this research and so where it took us. Let's talk about the smart city. The smart city is a city ecosystem that uses information and communication technology, Internet of Things, and optimization software in order to make itself cleaner, safer, better, more optimized for its inhabitants' well-being. Now, as we are getting closer to the realization of such smart city, we are exposed to more and more innovation and technology in our public domain, right? Shareable electric scooters, micro-mobility, micro-payments, deliveries, right? All of these things are redefining and reshaping our public space. Now, these services and products are usually designed according to the right design thinking methodology. They are desirable for their user, feasible for their creators, and viable for both of them. But they are designed according to the active user, the person who is actually using them, the people in blue. But what about her? Are we designing for her? Is this product for her? Is she affected? These questions got us to dive deeper into the meaning of usability. Now, current literature defined 4 kinds of users. The active user, which have different interactions with the innovation or the technology, from operation to maintenance, etc. Unlike the passive user, which merely monitors the technology without touching it or operating it, much like a co-pilot. The third one is the incidental user, who solely care about the data output of the technology, has no control over it, and actually no need to understand where it comes from. And last but not least, the most undiscussed one is the non-user that chooses to opt out and to not use. We generally do not design for this user and generally don't really care about him. Now, when thinking about what we have here, it's generally active users and non-users. And according to these definitions, we don't design for her. But she is affected. Now, adopting such technologies to the public domain without the coerced user, without the non-user consent, basically prevents them from opting out and avoiding. So you can say, all right, there's nothing new here, right? Road paving always disrupted the horse riders, right? Every new technology disrupts something. This is why it's called disruptive technology. But here it where it becomes interesting. Because diving deep into the research, we understand that for the first time in history, the non-users are affected not merely by the product features, but also by the product's connectivity. You see, a general understanding and assumption of the smart city is that all inhabitants are going to be connected, right? And even today, you can't enjoy some of the city services without having smartphones, both in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and in other places in the world. Connectivity means sharing data. And sharing data meaning optimization. And this is the second assumption. The second assumption is that inhabitants are going to share data with the city. Now, this data that they're going to share is going to get into what we define as the data cycle. They're sharing data with the city, which use it for optimization of their services, right? Waste management, security, bureaucracy, etc. But their data serve the optimization of all services, even the one they don't use. And the optimization for the services that they do use data from the services that they don't like. Basically, the non-user can no longer not use. The non-user is coerced into participating in this data cycle and coerced into using these products. And this is where we found a new kind of user. This is where the coerced user is born and the non-user become obsolete. Right? The coerced user is a connected inhabitant of the smart city, which share data with it and enjoying its optimization. She cannot decide to not use innovation. Right? First of all, because if it's in the public domain, she cannot avoid its indirect contact, just like shareable electric scooters on my sidewalk. Second, because she cannot choose to not share data with the city system. This is basically becoming some sort of an unwritten rule of the smart city. And third, because she cannot choose to not enjoy the optimization that the city is creating using data coming from these unwanted services. Now, it's important to understand that this kind of new user, if we want to design for it, we need to understand how, right? So it's important to understand that unlike Roger's innovation adoption life cycle, service value for coerced users does not translate into adoption. If they adopt technology, they are active users. So what is for them? For coerced user, service value translates into acceptance. The coerced users are on the scale between accepting and supporting or rejecting. You can find them supporting a technology that they do not use, thinking it's good, or rejecting it, or even hardly rejecting it, physically. Now, once we understand that we have a new kind of user in the smart city, we are ought to design accordingly, right? We are ought to design accordingly if we want our products to be used. And I must emphasize that this is not a business advice for companies who wants to create better products that will not be rejected. This is an ethical claim when thinking about designing for the smart city. Because if we believe that our solutions are going to make the world a better place, we want them to be widely spread, and we want them to create this optimization. And if we don't do it, they will be rejected. And rejection means rejection, right? Shareable electric scooters has been rejected from many places around the world, and you cannot find them, not in New York, not in Paris, because they were not made with coerced users in mind. And we can see that in our research, right? We talked with 10 coerced users of shareable electric scooters and understood that in the beginning, they were supportive of the idea. And why wouldn't they, right? It's a clean technology. It takes car off the streets, less pollution. But they became rejectors. And the reason is implementation. Implementation that redesigned their public space without asking them how and made the life worse. Implementation that create chaos in the streets. Implementations that create exclusion of different societies from the sidewalk. Implementation that created this ambiguous feeling of where did these aliens that look exactly the same, one-fits-all solution came from, filling our streets, and what do they want? And the implementation that create this negative correlation of efficiency between the efficiency it's supposed to create to the active users and the anxiety it creates for the coerced users, both on the sidewalk and on the road. All of this product reached went down in the scale from support to reject because it lacked coerced user design. And the reason lacked it because there is no coerced user design, because there is no coerced users. So we took on ourselves, again, starting with talking about drones, moving to shareable electric scooters, we took on ourselves to define a new method for design, which is coerced user design. And therefore changed our design challenge, change it to an opportunity. How might we create a coerced user experience design methodology? And because we are coming from human-centered design approaches, what is the first thing we did? We went talking with people, right? We went talking with coerced users. And we sat with them and we co-designed with them. And that was an amazing experience. First of all, because nobody asked them what they want. Nobody is talking with them. And they were happy to share how shareable electric scooters services could be better for them, how they can make the active users better. So after ideating and after prioritizing several ideas, we went to implementation. In prototyping, first of all, in a physical aspect, right? Creating parking spaces, putting several nudges in the streets that might make people act a little better. And also in the digital space, right? Creating a WhatsApp group for around 10 active users, rewarding them to drive better and to act in a better way when using micromobility. And the results were very interesting because in 3 days of experiment, the active users that we were working with were acting better. But the most interesting thing is that we're not living in a void, right? We're living in a boiling environment that is rejecting micromobility. And we started to see some of our ideas being implemented in the streets. And this is the most interesting part, because eventually coerced users drove this change, and it wouldn't happen if they would not reject, and it could have happened before if they would design better. Now, as I'm coming from drones, I didn't came here to redefine micromobility. It was just an analogy, right? I invested in this research and analogy and got a result of how I can design better. And result that basically became a design approach. And as we are coming with, as we came with a design thinking approach, we wanted to create a methodology that will allow us to design for the coerced users. So we created the coerced user canvases. The first one, allowing us to analyze which coerced users we can find in each environment our product is active with, right? The environments change and the coerced user changes according to environment. If the product is in the beach or in a specific city or in a specific street, there will be different coerced users there, and we need to identify who they are. That way we can co-design with them. The second thing was to understand the influences, how the active users are influencing the coerced users. In what way? What are the pains that they are experiencing? And third, what is the data that they can share with each other that will benefit each other? Right? I think that in general, if talking about this research, right, identifying a new kind of user, basically emphasizing for us the need to create a more holistic design approach for the complex environment of the smart city, and to create a design approach and ethics for coerced users that will benefit both coerced users and active users, right? And it's our responsibility as designers and innovators to push this methodology forward, right? Bringing it to life in more organizations. And I think that it's our responsibility as well as designers and creative people to push the usage of design research methodology in the beginning, in our ventures or in our companies, that will allow us to unveil the right questions that we need to answer. Before trying to run an answer and give answers to a specific, to an existing question. So I encourage you to invest in design research. And this is what I came here to present. So thank you very much.